FOF. I'm here with Pastor Jamie. And Jamie, this has been a super day for our church family. This is the third year that we've done this service project here at the University of Rio Grande. We've also worked up at the playground up by the elementary school too. And for the very first time, we had Southeastern Ohio Food Bank deliver a truck where our youth worked with different families there. Why don't you just kind of talk about how this day started, and did you see this even when you and Amy first started attending FOF at the beginning?
I think that it's always kind of been part of the vision and the mission. Maybe we didn't necessarily have that part clarified as much, but it just became really clear to me as we began the transition in 2014 and 15 that if we were going to be a church in Rio Grande, that we really need to be part of the community here. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled with what the university that they've allowed us to be part of it, with the village. Matt Easter, the mayor, has been he's thrilled anytime we say we want to do something. So it's amazing in 3 years, the people who are showing up and working, and just the voices of people who aren't involved, who I hear from later throughout the year, who remember us as the church that does, even though we do mulching mostly and weeding, they remember us for that. And it's really, I believe, just the first stage of something that's really a big deal. It's something that we're going to do really to see our community in Rio Grande transform, but also make even a bigger impact on our area in Gallia County and around. So I'm thrilled. I really am.
Now, our first week of the Heart series, we did an interview with Nikita, and what she kind of talked about was the opportunity for a blessing box. This past week, we were able to get that in the ground with Jim Blevins. There was even some flowers that were planted. But more importantly, what was great about that is it's already full.
Right.
Why don't you just kind of talk about how our message series, this Heart series of having a calling and putting into action and so on and so forth, how you've seen that grow into fruition here today.
Well, that right there is a perfect example of what we talk about all the time. What I really hope that we can start understanding as a main part of our mission, not just as a church, but as people. That week that Nikita came to me and said that she really wanted to do that, that's something I've talked about for a year already. Mayor Matt and I had talked about it, and he had given us an okay for it a year ago, but we just never really had anybody who had the heart and really felt the call. And when Nikita said that, honestly, she was just kind of waiting for the okay. When I said it was all set up, she jumped on it, and then honestly, between what she and Jim did, it moved faster than I even expected, and I'm thrilled. It was awesome to see it up there. I was up there earlier today, and to see that not only did Nikita arrange for the box to be built and all of that, but she's got people who are already slated to fill it every month. And the day that she announced, or that we announced that it was up, there were people immediately on social media who were asking if they could go ahead and start putting food in there. So I know we've got people who do eggs and do other types of farm foods. That's a great place too, where they can utilize that. And I really think it will be a blessing for our community here. So, and that's the thing is, it seems like a small step, but that's the kind of stuff that I really believe that we are called to do. If we take steps small like that, each of us, and then we take some larger ones as a community, that's when we'll start really seeing stuff happen, see things change. Because small elements of faithfulness really make a massive impact. And what the Bible tells us, that when we are faithful in small things, we will have opportunities for larger things. And I think that's what we're seeing.
And one of the small elements that you're even speaking of today was just that relationship that you've been able to build with Mayor Matt. And then because of that, a byproduct of that is today we had Southeastern Ohio Food Bank here. And tell us about how that even started, what that relationship there, maybe even with you and Mayor Matt, and then with the food bank, how that began.
Well, in the fall, I don't know, like November, Matt said that he was going up to tour. Actually, he said they were coming down. and he had just gotten connected somehow, and we had a brief meeting over in the municipal building, and just to find out some information about it. And we met, there were a couple ladies from there who came down, and Osti and Mallory, and we were really impressed by not just what they did, but the different resources they offered, and find out that there were a lot of things that they do. And even though they're technically in another county, that they serve 10 counties, and aren't one of them. And immediately after that meeting, Matt and I both we said we've got to find ways to utilize that. And so, I don't know, about 6 or 8 weeks ago, we went on a tour of the Southeast Ohio Food Bank, and we're just blown away by everything they do, all the different programs and things they do. And it was just within a week of that, I came back and I talked to some folks at the church, and we were talking about this service day, and I just really felt like that was something that we needed to do too. And so today, we had 18 people down there, mostly teenagers, serving our community, and we got rid of 10 tons of food. So, and it cost, the whole cost of that entire thing was just $500. So it's an amazing thing, and as we've gone and toured the food bank, and had more conversations, we've realized that the hunger is a major thing that people struggle with, and we don't even realize it. And then to also be able to do it on this campus with a student group also, I mean, it all came together, and I think it's the first of many things we'll be doing with all that.
So as we close out with this interview, is there one thing in particular that you really feel like, as you were out and about in the groups today, that you really feel like you need to share with us here at the church?
Well, I spent a lot of time going from place to place, so I didn't get a chance to actually see, or get to talk as much as I would like to. But just the thing that has that hit me is to see that we've got people who are here today who are working, who've been part of Fellowship of Faith from the beginning. We've got people here who were part of it from the beginning, and have kind of were gone for a while and are back. And then we have people who have been coming for just a few months, and then for all those times in between. And if it was exciting, it was encouraging me, because if we were truly going to grow in community and also grow in our faith, it's going to take all of us. We had every age group imaginable here, and they were all working for one purpose. And I really, if I had anything, that's it. Working together for a single purpose can really, you can get a lot done. I mean, we did a ton of work in 2 hours, and we've got a lot of work left to do that God's calling us to do, and we can do it together.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much just for your leadership. Since you've taken over and just taking that talk that we always had in the vision and making us walk that. So thank you for continuing to challenge us and continue to do so over the next couple of years. I really appreciate you, Pastor Jamie.
All right, thanks.
All right, awesome. The service day that we were able to do at the end of April was a really big deal, and we've shown one video where we talked to the president over there, also of the University of Rio Grande. But that video in particular, even though Jamie is not here, fits very well with what we're going to be discussing today. See, when we talked about that transformation last week, it fits perfectly again with the opportunity to take a next step and talk about how we build community, how we build fellowship, and how we do that through the gospel, which of course is the reason why you come to church, right? Is the opportunity to hear the gospel and to grow from it. As I was studying for the opportunity for this message, there was a stat that I came across that I thought was very important for the message even here today. It says this. It says that there was a study by Lifeway Research talking to young adults, which of course for me, that is something that is a passion of mine. I love meeting with young people. I always like to think that I'm the same age as them, which every year I get a little bit further away from that. But here's the stat. It said 75%, or here's the question, excuse me. I'm getting ahead of myself here. What is the most important part of their life of faith? So when a young adult is asked that, 75% of those who belong to a church say community or another way of putting it is authentic connection and relationship. There's 47% of people who are not affiliated with church, young adults, said the same exact thing. So here's the deal. People, young adults, and I think everyone here, what we are looking for is transparency. We're looking for honesty. We're looking for authentic community. It goes on to say that one student actually talks about what draws people to a climate or an environment is that word honesty. For me, I think that that's very true. I mean, in many of our lives, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people that we can trust, that we can create a community or an environment with. But most of all, we're hoping that the person that we're talking to or that's talking to us is being honest. I mean, let's be honest, right? I mean, that's a goal for us. We want to be around people who, of course, like some of the same things that we like, different things along those lines, but we want to have honest, real conversations with people. We hate when people are fake, right? High school kids all the time, especially junior high when I would spend time in the middle school, immediately I would hear things like, oh, she's so fake, or, ugh, I can't believe they said that. Carly's sitting here, and I remember when she was in middle school, that was the word. It was like, everything that you did was, ew, ew. And it would just make me crawl inside. Like, I would get so angry because there was no community being built there. It was very easy to chop each other down rather than to build each other up. And of course, in a church, that's what we're looking for too, right? So here's the thing. What we're trying to ask people to do is to be transformed, like we talked about last week, and then take that transformation through the gospel, okay? Make sure that you're understanding that, through the gospel to build community that nurtures that transformation. We're going to talk about a couple different ways that can happen, but let me be very honest with you and let you know that is the hardest thing that we've had to try to do here at Fellowship of Faith and probably in every other church, is to try to create a community of people who want to be transformed. Okay? Think about it in your own life right now. Yes, you come here on Sunday mornings and you are involved in different things, and you can probably go through your head a little bit and be able to pick out different things that you do here at Fellowship of Faith. But the problem of continually trying to build community into those things, to be honest, to be transparent, to be authentic, is very difficult. So in the scripture that we're going to look at is in Acts in chapter 2. And many of you guys have heard this scripture. This is a scripture that I believe probably every pastor who talks about community, that talks about fellowship, uses, which is Acts chapter 2, verses 41 to 47. So if you guys will, if you'll go ahead and turn there. It's going to be up on the screen also. Let me just take just a quick minute here, too, before we get going here, so it gives you guys a little opportunity to turn there. Last week we talked about making sure that you get the FOF app if you did the daily readings. And then also we talked about the book that I suggested, which is called The Carpenter. So let me ask you a quick question. Of course, I'm going to have you raise your hand, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. But did anybody, even if it's one person, did anybody download that book, The Carpenter, and take a look at it and read it? Anybody? Any hands? Okay, nobody's hands. Okay, so it's completely fine. The book is called The Carpenter. It's by John Gordon. For me, I like it because I got it on Audible, like I told you guys. And if you listen to books, which for me is very, very helpful, it's about 2 hours long. So if you have commutes in the mornings or something along those lines, you can listen to that on your way to work and your way back. And if, in probably 3 or 4 or 5 days, in a week's time, you've got that book. You've knocked that book out a little bit. And it talks about a lot of the different things that we're going to be talking about today and that we talked about last week. So I would really love to have some conversations in the next few weeks with some folks that have picked up that book. That's also in your current that you guys received. And I was supposed to make one announcement about that too, so I'm glad that I remembered that. So about page 3 here, it talks about reading selection. The Carpenter even has a sweet picture of the book right there. And it has nothing really, it does talk about building, but if you don't have building skills, it's completely fine, because I have no carpentry skills whatsoever, but I have friends that do, and so they usually do a lot of my work. So this guy over here. So, quick question. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. Mother's Day photos. I said last week that Mother's Day photos were not here. They are in the building. So if you got Mother's Day photos a few weeks ago, they are in the building. Please see Stephanie or Katie for those, and they'll be out at the Connection Center, and you can pick those up. Okay. All right. Back to our regular scheduled program here. Okay. Acts 2, 41 through 47. It says in 41, those who believed what Peter said were baptized and added to the church that day were about 3,000 in all. And then it talks about the believers form a community. 42. All the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship and to the sharing in meals, including the Lord's Supper and to prayer. 43. A deep sense of awe came over them all, and the apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders. 44. And all the believers met together in one place, and they shared everything they had. They sold their property and possessions and shared the money with those in need. 46. They worshiped together at the temple each day, met in homes for the Lord's Supper, and shared their meals with great joy and generosity. 47. All the while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of people. And each day the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. Of course, when you read those verses, and many of you guys, if you've been in church any length of time and you've heard messages on fellowship or on community or how to build groups, pastors are going to this every single time. This is the easiest section of material, of Scripture that you can go to. People are pretty familiar with Acts. So, for instance, this is a set of verses that you've heard many times. So, here's the thing. I think that those people were looking for leadership. They were looking for community, and they were looking for fellowship. They just came off a situation where Jesus, we read in Matthew that he, of course, he died. He was brought back to life, resurrected, and then the Holy Spirit is coming. So at this point here, they're looking for something new. Okay? They are in need. I can't emphasize that enough, is because I believe, and we'll kind of talk about this as we go, but when people are in need, as a Christ follower, there's an opportunity for us to be able to step up and to be a part of that community or that fellowship at the time. So here's what I think. I think in our own lives, we're not very different from those people. They were in need. They were looking for leadership. They were looking for a community, a group to be a part of. We're not different. We're not very different. See, Jenny and I, we talk about community and fellowship all the time. We have these discussions in the car. When we get done meeting with folks, from friends of ours, we always talk about how we can be a part of their lives, how we can help transform that, how to be a stronger community or fellowship, different things like that. And here are just some of the things that we've tried, okay? We've tried working and growing with small groups. We've tried to create a culture of belonging even on our softball team. We try to invite people to certain events that we feel like will impact their lives. We attend t-ball games. We attend basketball games. We attend softball games, little girls' softball games. I coach high school baseball. We try to be involved as much as we possibly can. Even recently, we've had the great opportunity of having people enter our home, which is something that we haven't really had since we moved back to Gallipolis. We've been blessed with a home that has an in-ground pool, which is awesome. I love it, except for when you have to try to take care of it, and I know really nothing about it. But the pool is still clear and blue at this point, so it should be working. But the opportunity that we've had over the past couple weeks, even when the pool is still cold, we've had the opportunity to have families over and to spend quality time. And they're different groups of people. They're not always the same group, same people that show up there. You never know who might show up, and I love that opportunity to be able to build fellowship and community with those people. See, we do all these things. Let me just tell you this. We do, if you've been involved in this, we do all these things to build community, fellowship, culture, or an environment of people that want to transform their lives. And there's a fine line that we must walk when we do that. See, in many of these opportunities, I struggle sometimes with this. I lose passion to help transform a person. Because mostly what I see is that person doesn't want to go any further. You ever tried to build a community? I know Joe, many times we've kind of had this talk, and I'm guilty as much as anyone. What I start to do is I build a relationship with somebody, and I was talking to Jenny and Cody and Demara about this a couple weeks ago. I build a relationship with somebody mostly because I see the potential that they might have in Jesus, okay? Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm a used car salesman and I'm trying to, like, just grab the person that I think can go tell the most people about Jesus. But what I want to try to do is I want to get close to somebody and build a relationship with somebody and start to try to build a community, a group of people that want to be transformed. But then what ends up happening is you start to kind of build that a little bit, and especially even in small groups, you start to build a little bit of momentum, and then one thing happens, maybe like somebody goes on vacation, or which is not a bad thing, okay? So let me just retract that a little bit and say that vacation is not a bad thing. It's a great thing, okay? So then what happens is you kind of lose a little bit of momentum. You know, this person's gone this week, this person's gone the next week, different things like that. So maybe you put off a message, or you put off the video for a week or two, or those talks, instead of being transforming talks and growing talks, you start talking more about the Reds or the different things like that. And again, there's nothing wrong with those things, because I love talking about baseball. I love talking about sports. I love talking about, building relationships with people and seeing, I talked to you last week about old cars. I love to learn about new things and cars and different things along those lines. There's a lot of things I don't know anything about, and I just shake my head and nod and be like, yeah, that's great. You're doing a super job. But what happens is, and I'm just as guilty, and I have an extreme problem with this. What happens is I see that person doesn't want to go any further, or I start dropping the ball personally, and then what happens is we go from a transforming opportunity for community, and what then we do is we just begin to hang out. You just hang out. Is there anything wrong with hanging out? No. It's fun. It's fun when you get to spend quality time with people, and you maybe cook out, or whatever it might be. But then as a person who wants to see transforming lives happen, okay, you feel like there's this like big elephant in the room that just keeps growing and growing and growing, and you want to say something and you can't because it's gotten too big, and then you don't know what to say or how to say it. So you just begin to hang out. So then what happens is your group that you've developed, and this is very personal to me. The group that you've developed starts to waver. We talked about that a little bit. They start to make excuses for not showing up. I start making excuses for not showing up. As a result, we talk less about transformation, and we talk more about the people who are not there. We talk about their downfalls and how they're struggling and how they need a Savior and how they need transformation. But see, at that point, we've lost passion. I've lost passion. I have not fulfilled that opportunity to continually help you help yourself. But here's the thing, even with that, there has to be that opportunity where that person that you're meeting with sees the potential in themselves. They have to realize that Jesus Christ is the most important relationship you'll ever have in your life. See, when we talk about groups, I'm probably the hardest person on myself, of course. I mean, Pastor Jamie talks about this too, but it bothers me tremendously when I try to create a culture or an environment or a group and we fail. I immediately talk to my wife about, that's got to be me. It's got to be me. It's got to be my fault. I didn't do what I needed to do. I let them down. Because for me, I feel like God has called me to create environments. He's created me to create community, to help people like you and me grow together. So when those communities and those groups and they fall apart, I immediately know that that's my downfall. I believe it. See, we talked about honesty and transparency a little bit. In your group that you have, if those are not the two mainstays in that group, the group begins to fall apart. See, because when you're not able to say what you really want to say in your group, in your community, and you're not able to be honest and transparent, those things start to fall apart. And you do begin, just like any other human being, you start to talk about the people that are not there, that should make up your group, but they don't. Because somewhere along the line, they've lacked that desire to stay in your group, to grow your group, to be transformed by God's word. See, because I really feel like that you can have groups of people and you can hang out, and in those times you're going to have good groups and be able to spend some quality time together. But what happens in that time is if it's not a transforming group, okay, and you're not continually growing, we've talked about this, the group falls apart, and then everybody kind of goes on their own way. Because what happens in your group is, think about this, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of circling around here. I'm trying to get to be very honest, I'm trying to get to this point right here, and I can't get there. Okay, so here's the thing. In your group, you think about the old days when things went well, right? When, man, you were really getting after it, and you had people coming, and people were transforming, and they were growing, and things like that. And then what you start to do is you reminisce on those things. You're not looking to build something new or to help grow your community. You're kind of having a pity party for yourself, right? You're grasping for those things that used to be great, and now they're broken. That's the point right there. That's what I was trying to get to, right? Because I really think in my life I've had those groups. There's been different times in my life where I've had groups that have been awesome. They have been life-changing. They have been transformational. Sometimes I've had the honor to lead those groups, and other times I've just been a part of those groups. But in those times, every single time, I can point back to the opportunity where we've had to take one more step as a group. And then life happens a little bit. Let me just tell you, there's nothing wrong with life happening. Many times, Pastor Jamie and I have had these discussions about how do we build small groups? How do we build community? How do we be transparent and honest? And why are people not plugging in? Okay, well, let me tell you why people aren't plugging in. And this is not rocket science, but maybe even for me it's a little bit. People are busy. I'm busy. You know, I just got done coaching baseball, and there's about 4 or 5 guys that I told we had a baseball cookout. I told those guys, hey, you know what? I'd love to have you guys over for the summer. And I was very intentional, and I said, you know, I'd love for you guys to come over and hang out with me, but I also want to talk about Jesus. Would you guys be interested? Yes, Coach Craig, I would love to do that. So our baseball season ended mid-May, so we're 3 or 4 weeks out so far. Guess how many times I've had those players over? Somebody say it. 0. I have great intentions, just like many of you guys. I have great intentions. I love those guys. I love those guys like they're my brother and my sons all together. I don't know, that's super weird and like maybe like I would say a state, but we might lose people, so I'm not going to. But I think that opportunity to have those young men over and for me to be able to sink in their lives, I want that so much. But then I look at my schedule and say, well, we got church softball on Monday night. I've been trying to, Pastor Jamie's leading the way in body transformation, so trying to get some lifting in, trying to do that on Tuesday and Thursday, not doing a very good job at that. Wednesday, trying to get my butt out here, which I'm not real good at that. Let's be very honest about that too. Okay, Friday and Saturday, like to spend time with people and to hang out, right? And then Sunday, trying to get here on Sunday mornings and be here every week and be a part of helping transform these folks' lives. But what happens is then those 4 or 5 guys, okay, they're not here on Sunday mornings usually. I mean, sometimes they are, all right? But they might be in bed sleeping, okay? The time that I'm wasting not spending with them, they get to go do other things and go hang out that might not be transformational. I mean, they could be. They could be. They might be trying to find it in different areas. Maybe Coach Rife or maybe Coach Penrod's got something for the football program, something like that. They're maybe finding different opportunities, but I want to make sure I guide them in a way that they can be transformed, have a transformed life. So here's a question I have for you guys. I want you to think of a time in your life where you had great relationships with a group of people, not just like one family, okay? I want you to think about a time in your life where you had like a great group of friends and you did a lot of different things together. People you could trust and that was authentic. Could be a work group, people that you've spent some quality time with at work and you actually want to hang out with them and spend quality time with them after work, which is a great thing when that happens in your life. It could be if you have kids, that time in your life where maybe they played soccer together or baseball or something like that, and there were 6 to 8 families, maybe 4 to 8 families that those kids kind of went from sport to sport to sport. Like the Cardwells, I know I've talked to them a lot. Their son he plays a couple different sports and loves baseball, and that group of baseball kids, they spend a lot of time together, right? So you think about that. See, here's the thing. That's a community. But is it authentic? As a baseball coach, I'll tell you probably not. Okay? I mean, those parents might really enjoy each other's company, but when it comes down to like the bottom of the 7th inning and so-and-so's up the bat and they strike out and your son's sitting on the bench and you think that they should be up there instead of that guy, and then you get in the car and it's not a transformational relationship. You begin to talk about, well, if my kid was up there instead of so-and-so's kid, right? And you know what? I don't have kids, but my parents did a pretty good job of not doing that, but there were times when that happened, right? So it's not like, oh, parent, you're terrible parents. I'm not saying that, but see that group right there, that community that you had, it wasn't transforming. Any opportunity that you had, just like I talked about before in my groups, any opportunity that you had to waver, to talk about somebody else about, well, if he worked on, if he went to the hitting building or he went to Gay Academy's baseball camp like he should have, then he would know. Of course, that's a plug. Ours is coming up this week. So anyway, and here's the deal, guys. I don't mind that. I love that. We went to a T-ball game. Cody and Demara's little girl Hadley's playing T-ball, and she's like the cutest thing under the sun. She had a little pink helmet and a pink bat and pink glove and pink shoes, which I'm thinking, oh my gosh, Lord, I hope I don't have a daughter. But then what happens is she hits the ball, and everybody's just kind of standing. And then they're like, run, run, run. Like everybody in the crowd, run, 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 run. So here she goes. And, of course, Cody is like athletic, and he goes 100% in everything he does. And Hadley's just like home run trotting it everywhere she goes, kind of thing. But see, what has happened is that group right there are most of the kids that play on the team, most of their parents, a parent, something along those lines, teach at Rio Elementary School. So those parents spend time together at work. Then they go to the T-ball field and they hang out a little bit, and they spend some quality time. Well, see, what's happened a little bit is, and Demara and Cody know this, but they've kind of invited us to be a part of the group. Of course, we don't have kids, but they've invited us a little bit to kind of come to some T-ball games or to have some people over to swim, different things along those lines. And I want to have the opportunity to build some transformation in that group. But I've got to get permission, right? There's a difference between, we talked about that fine line, that difference between having permission for somebody and then just being kind of weak and not being able to talk about any of those things. Because I think what happens is there's a great opportunity for transformation there. Some of those folks, they attend different churches and different things like that, but just like everybody else, they're very busy. So maybe what that looks like is after a T-ball game or something like that, instead of everybody kind of going to their separate homes or something along those lines, you just say, hey, after T-ball on Wednesday night, we're going to go eat. We're going to go eat together. And while the kids are running around like crazy and putting their hands on everything like kids do. You just be able to have like 3 minutes of, hey, how was your week? This is one of the things we talked about at our church. How can I help you when you're in need? Because I think truly this section of verses in Acts, that's what happened. There was a need, and people came around and started to meet that need. See, people sold their possessions during those times, and I truly believe because they could fulfill the Great Commission, okay, which is to make disciples, to come alongside somebody and to build them up and build community and grow community. See, there are people in my life and Jenny's life that we consider friends. They might not, maybe they don't consider us friends, but who knows? We consider them friends, but we don't get to see them as much because our paths, they don't cross. Maybe they are on the ball field 4 nights a week, or they do other things on Friday and Saturday nights. See, we've got to be intentional and be able to show up at those places and be involved in their life. But what happens is, of course, like we've kind of talked about, when people are busy, you have a difficult time. And here at this church, what happens a lot of times is when people are busy, it's an opportunity on Sunday morning where everybody's going to hopefully come together at 10 a.m. and you get to say, hey, how are you doing? You get to look at somebody and shake a hand and give a hug and be meaningful and to be honest and to build authenticity. And because of that, you hopefully are starting to build community. See, these people that we would love to spend more time with, that we don't cross paths with, hopefully for us, what we do is when there's a need, we are able to show up and to help meet that need. There's a particular family that Jenny and I they've been on our heart for the last handful of years, and both the husband and wife I've known since grade school kind of thing, junior high kind of thing, and they over the last handful of years they had an extreme tragedy in their life, and during that tragedy, God gave me the opportunity to spend some quality time with them and to just share what God had for them in that tragedy. And since that time, always around here in June, they have a very difficult time because that's when the tragedy happened in their life. And they begin to kind of share about it. And, of course, during those times, there's a lot of tears that are shed, different things along those lines. But this week, I sent them a text, and I just said, hey, I want you guys to know that I love you. I know that Jenny and I don't get to spend as much time with you as what we would like to, but I want you to know that we love you. And I want you to also realize all the good you've done since that day. How many families you've helped that have went through similar situations, that you've stepped up and you've met a need. And immediately she said back to me, she said, well, thank you for that, Craig, but we're not the ones who do that. You do that. Well, that's pretty cool when you get texts like that because you know that you're being transformational, that you're spending time. But it also hurts me a little bit to know that I could do more. And see, for you guys, you should be looking for those things. I want to show you a couple things here. A handful of weeks ago, Pastor Steve, on a whim, basically we're like doing a couple songs here or there, and he tells me, we look at this video. It's like on a Wednesday because we always work very well under pressure. So it's like on a Wednesday, and he's like, hey, Craig, I'm going to do this song on Sunday. And I like look it up, of course, on YouTube, and it has these posters. And I'm like, Steve, we can do this. He's like, okay, Craig, let's see what you can do here. Let's see if you can pull some people together. So we pull about 10 or 15 folks together, and it worked out beautifully. It was awesome. You guys would never know that we pulled that together from Wednesday to Sunday kind of thing. You guys were like, oh, my gosh, that's so cool. So anyway, we took some of these posters here, and I'm just going to pull up a couple here. So the name of the song was called Flawless, and it was by Mercy Me, super song. If you haven't listened to it, I would really encourage you guys to take a look at that on YouTube. But see, what happens is, we had folks who came up and they held the poster, right? And you guys can see them here. This one says, worry and stress of having another seizure and more migraines. Okay? So what would happen is they'd hold it, and then they'd flip it about halfway through the song, okay? So this one right here, sexually abused as a child. Pretty tough, right? And then they did it this way. Almost got a little bit confused, but then you flip it, okay? Pretty neat, right? ACL tear. This is one high school athlete right here. Anytime that you go through any of that, even if you're young or old or whatever, very difficult, right? Then you flip it, flawless, right? So we go through some of these. Wonder whose that one is right there. You guys know this? I battle with cystic fibrosis every day. Flawless. That's my wife's. All right, so we go through some of these guys here, okay? Foot amputation at age 12. Wow. Okay? You think about that. Some of you younger folks that are in here, think about that. Foot amputation at age 12. Flawless. So we could continue to go through these here. And this is what I want to share with you, right? As I go through these quickly, these are meaningful, right? Is this meaningful if I hold it? It is kind of, okay? But is this my story? No. See, like I can show you these and I can flip them and I can tell you that this person's flawless. But you know who you really need to hear from in this story series is this person, okay? When they hold this poster and you see what has went on in their life and the difficulty. Guys, here's just a few words. The ACL tear, 2 words, okay? See, in our lives, I truly feel like that we have an opportunity to meet a need. That's what that Acts passage, I believe, okay, in my thoughts, in this time in my life, I feel like that's what they did. They had the opportunity to meet a need, and so that's what they did. See, on that Sunday morning when you guys were here and you heard that song, and Pastor Steve and the band did an amazing job, but I'll tell you who did even a more amazing job are the people that held those posters and were able to say who they were or who they are and how God's love and grace in them has created them as a masterpiece like we talked about. Their life is flawless. It's been transformed. But here, for you guys, here's what I want you to know. See, on that Sunday morning, there were some of you here that right afterwards, right after that was done, they walked off stage and you got up out of your seat and you went and met them by the back door and you gave them a big old hug and you loved on them and you said, I didn't know that about you. I didn't know that you tore your ACL or that you had your foot amputated at age 12 or that you were sexually abused as a child or that you deal with tons of stress and you feel like maybe seizures might be a part of your life. You know, those are things even too, guys, for me, I didn't know about. I mean, look at the stack of these things. I didn't know that all those stories. See, but here's the difference. Here's our opportunity. Forget difference. Here's our opportunity. Did you get up that day after the service was over or even during the service and go hug and love on those people and tell them that you didn't know about that and see how you guys can connect? Because some of you guys, it's like I was holding up your poster, right? Or did you just get up like every other Sunday and ignore the power that these posters possessed and you just left? See, if we want to try to create a culture here at Fellowship of Faith, and we're doing this, okay? I don't want you to think, oh, here's doom and gloom, Pastor Craig coming at me. No, we're doing these things, but realize that you have the greatest opportunity in the world to take one more step. See, when you see a need, that opportunity to meet that need, it's awesome for you to be able to be like, hey, here you go. Let me give you a big hug. But you have no idea the meaning that it has for that person that you're hugging on. People are looking for authenticity and honesty in community and in fellowship. So here's a couple things that I have for you guys. as a Christ follower, here's what I want you to do. I want you to start reaching out to some of those old relationships that you've had in the past. Maybe your kids have grown and they're gone, but you still remember that question I asked you before about who are the people that you were spending time with. Maybe give them a call, shoot them a message on Facebook and see how they're doing. Maybe during that time, you'd have an opportunity to start to build a community that you'd be able to meet a need during that time. As a Christ follower, begin to figure out ways to enter into a new community. See, because I feel like the opportunity for me that Cody and Demara have given us, the opportunity to be at a T-ball game, I know that they don't necessarily see it that way, and they probably hate that we bug the tar out of them about getting Hadley's schedule. But the opportunity to first see her run around the bases, and when she comes in, like we just got there and she had hit, we saw her hit, she came around the bases. As soon as she came out, she says, where's Tag at? Because that's what she calls me. All right? That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool to be like, I'm right here, honey, give me a hug. All right? I love that piece. But also what I like is I like hanging out with the Randall's family, and I like hanging out with the Amons, and I like learning more about the Fortners and seeing all these different families and the opportunities to meet with some of those teachers and to spend some quality time, and they trust us a little bit. That's what's so cool. That they start to talk to my wife about the things that they're doing, and Jenny even joined Junior Women's Club, which is completely out of like any realm. If you would have told me that Jenny would have joined Junior Women's Club 3 years ago, I'd have been like, you're crazy. My wife does not like to get outside of her little comfort zone, but she's doing that and enjoying it as much as possible. And the last thing I want you to do as a Christ follower is build into your already existing community. That is what Cody and Demara, that's what they're doing. That's what we have the opportunity to do. Build into that group of people that you have at work or something along those lines. So here's what I like to do to leave you with. If you guys want to go ahead and come on up, I want to leave you with this. This is Philippians chapter 2, verses 1 through 5. As a Christ follower, the opportunity to have that gospel to be transformational is extremely a big deal. And here's what I would like you guys to do. As we look at this, verses 1 through 5, I want you to understand that this is a good guide for you to have an attitude with Christ. It says this in verse 1. Is there any encouragement from belonging to Christ? Any comfort from his love? Any fellowship together in the Spirit? Are your hearts tender and compassionate? Then make me truly happy by agreeing wholeheartedly with each other, loving one another, and working together with one mind and purpose. Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourself. Wow. Verse 4, don't look out only for our own interests, but take an interest in others. And that's what we've been talking about. You must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. I want to let you guys know that today that there's an opportunity in our church family or in your work family or on the ball fields or whatever it might be to build authentic, honest community and fellowship